Good morning, traders. Happy Friday. Today is Friday, September 23rd. My name is Charles, and this is the Pirate Traders live stream, where we talk about the ES and NQ on Market Profile. All right, well, pretty much if you want to know how to look at the market today, go back and watch the first 5 minutes of my video yesterday. It's pretty much the same. The differences are we have a very large gap this morning as opposed to the small gap that we had yesterday. The larger the gap, the less likely that it fills. Now remember, all gaps filling is a high probability thing to happen, but it just means the larger the gap, the less likely to fill, at least on that first day. So that is a pretty big gap. Okay. Am I bearish today for continuation to the downside? I would say it's possible, but I actually feel like what's more likely today will be a rotational day inside this overnight range, basically just trying to absorb some of this excess. And I'm kind of running late this morning. I got 2 minutes. Let me see if I can get it all out. Okay, so basically, this has now become, if you include this overnight move, this has just become a lot of excess to the downside. A very, very big move for the market. And excess sometimes leads to balance. You can't really count yesterday as a balance day because it was technically a continuation of the trend lower. So we are still in a phase of excess. Now, one thing that is quite common, let me just zoom in here, is that you want to look for about the same amount of excess as the size of the balance, right? On a breakout of balance. So boom, that was the balance. We've now done that range in terms of excess. So we've had enough momentum to the downside. We could have a sideways day. So what would get you bearish, Charles? What would you make you think they're going to just keep going? That we got more and more excess to the downside? Well, that would be breaking that overnight low. So if we get below 37.15, I mean, just look out below where the sky is falling. Okay, it's going to get bearish down there. But inside this overnight range, I think probably the chances of going sideways today are higher. So the first order of business when the market opens is going to be a counter auction to the upside. Okay, the overnight inventory was net short, so the first move will likely be the opposite direction, giving those overnight traders a chance to take profits. They'll be trying to fill the gap. So the first question we'll be asking ourselves is, can they get to yesterday's low up at 37.63? If they get there, do they get resistance or can they push through? If they get resistance at yesterday's low or they try to fill yesterday's low and they can't do it, that is a gap and go, which is the most bearish signal we can get, okay, and would increase the odds of continuation lower. And at that point, if we get a gap and go, the target is the test of the overnight low, just like it was yesterday. And then exactly like yesterday, we see, do we get resistance there? So we got the gap and go yesterday. They came, they filled the gap, and then they instantly sold off. So we knew it was a gap and go. They went down, they tested the overnight low. They pushed below it. They came back up. They did not get resistance. There was no resistance there, so we came back up and just rotated inside the overnight range. That's very possible today as well. So if we get the gap and go, we look to test the low, but we're not really bearish until we get resistance there because they could just come right back up and rotate inside this range. This reminds me of what we used to get during the bull market sometimes, where the overnight would make the move and then the regular trading hours would have to just sit and digest it. This has a very similar feeling. So here we go. As of now, it's a gap and go. If they push back through the opening price, that would be an attempt to go fill the gap. One trade setup you could consider is going long when the market passes back through, targeting the gap fill and putting your stop below the low wherever it was before the market comes back through. Okay, so we got some potential support here at around 37.20. Looking for a bounce to head back up and try to fill that gap. If not, no bounce. It's a gap and go, which is bearish. Okay, resistance at halfback. That's a little bit bearish. Oh man, this is a gap and go. Just new sellers piling on. All right, I'm bearish as long as we stay below the opening price. Looking to test the overnight low. We got some support first, so I'm sure we'll have to grind down there, but looking to test that overnight low at 37.15. Oh, man, and that's an old gap. Oh, Jesus. We talk about these weaknesses, man, and the market needing to come back and repair them. I didn't even notice that. This is an old gap left behind from 3 months ago. Needing backfilling. Look where the overnight came. Right into it. Okay, so normally on a test of the overnight low, I'd just be looking for it to poke below and then come back up. Today, I would specifically look for it to fill that gap left behind to 37.12 and look for a bounce there. Jeremy Jones could be volatility at 9:45. Why? What happens at 9:45? PMI. And at 2 o'clock, Papa Pal. You son of a gun. Is 37.12 adjusted for the change in future contracts? No, 37.12 would have been where the level was on the contract at the time that it happened. But watch it work like magic anyway. Scooball, I found that my brain ticks me that if something happened last time, I feel like it will repeat, but it is not happening so often, like yesterday breaking the low. I mean, we'll see. It's not like if we get resistance and continue lower, I won't, be bearish for continuation. It's just, it feels to me like they just want to do what they did yesterday, poke below and then come back up. But if I get information that there's resistance, I'll jump on the train. I mean, this gap and go is insane. They didn't even let the market even really go one tick above the open. Because look, only 3 contracts exchanged hands. And they were all sellers. Jeremy got some heat below. Wonder if it's spoofing or real? Yes, sir. We're going to find out, especially down there just below the gap fill. 37.10. That's the interesting level. Will that disappear? All right, so there's the test of the overnight low. They stopped just a tick above filling that gap. So I see that as a weak low. But now's the moment of truth. Do the buyers step in and defend? Can we get back above the halfback, 37.24? Or do we get smacked back down? New sellers at the overnight low. They just did it again. Dun, 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 dun. They just shut off the algorithms. What's going to happen in the next 5 minutes? What the heck just happened? They turned on a murder bot. Oh, the data coming out. Oh, okay. Okay, sorry. Okay, well, they repaired the gap. They filled the gap. They repaired the weak low they left behind. They tested the overnight low. So now can we turn resistance into support? Can the buyers start to defend 37.19? And can we get back above the halfback at 37.23? Man, new sellers at the low couldn't even get to the zero line. That's bearish, folks. That's bear. Bear. Bearish as can be. The heat is on. Man, here comes the fear. Here comes the anxiety and the panic. Why didn't I sell? Scooball 620 was a day off. Yeah, I'm just looking for volume. I'm just looking for areas where we might see, see what happens. Do we get support? By the way, all these support levels I've marked should really have question marks. I don't know. I want to see what happens there. But there's no fight in this momentum. Mark, my friend told me the ES would be on 3,700 on Monday. I thought he was smoking crack. Yeah, you got to get me some of that crack. All right, NQ also a gap and go that has now tested the overnight low. So we're looking for resistance at 11,379 for continuation lower, right where it's at now. Let's look at that on the book map. Nope, too much. too much for me. Can't do it. Back to the ES. Ed, is the box theory off now? Yes, correct. The idea that the overnight was enough excess appears to be wrong. They want to take it lower. Scott. What's going on this morning? Someone said we're going to new lows. The depths of S&P hell. They also said buy GameStop. It's just a trend down. I mean, I know it feels like the end of the world, but it's really not that surprising. Right? We had this major support and it broke. So now we need to figure out how much excess does the market need? How much of a discount do we have to put the market at to bring in those discount shoppers? They weren't willing to pay $39.20. That was too much. Will they pay $3,600? Will they need to pay $32? We're going to have to wait and see. But right now, the momentum is down, and that's all that matters. We're day traders. All that matters is what's happening today. Simon says, why not interested in the NQ much faster than the ES? Yeah, that's the problem. I just looked at their book map and I'm just like, ugh, no, too much activity, too fast, too unpredictable. My brain literally just can't process information this quickly. It's too much volatility. That's what's nice about the ES. Nice and calm. Just kind of doing its thing. Jason, was that an ambulance? I believe that was a fire truck. Sean, what time is Papa speaking? Yes, sir, 2 p.m. Scooball DAX did new lows today. Investors are bearish on the world. Scott, but the bounce off the newer lows should be quite a short covering rally. We fell on such weakness. Got to repair it right. Yes, sir. Oh, yes, sir. Those gaps, just like today, literally, I didn't even think about it. It's such a great example. We had that gap to right here. That was 3 months old. For 3 months, weakness was just sitting there needing to get filled. And guess what we did? Boop, boop. Instantly bounced off it. So yeah, make no doubt, we will come back for those gaps that we left behind today and on the NQ yesterday. But we got to wait until we run out of excess to the downside, right? First you get excess down, then you get balance, and then if that balance can break and come back up, then you look for that rally. Right now, we're still in the excess mode. You are here. Okay, well, as we've printed the B period right on the A period low, we created a poor low. So now what we would expect the market to do is push away from that poor low, looking for some resistance, and then it comes back to repair it, continuing the move lower. Okay, the low remains poor. Okay, there's the repair of the poor low. We still have the value area pushing up right against the low of the day, increasing the odds. We need more excess. Scott, why no lines above price but zebra below price? Is that liquidity? Yes, sir. Nobody wants to do business above price right now. All the business wants to be had down there. Man, it's been so long since I've not had my air conditioner on. I forgot how loud New York City is. Usually I have that like white noise in the background. Come on, I'm walking here. All right, so we got a bounce off support with a decent taper at the low, good excess. But we're still getting resistance below the overnight low, and we still have the value area at pushing up against the low of the day. So I don't suspect the selling is over. I'm looking for resistance here and continuation lower. Daniel, I got stopped out as my stop was just above resistance. One thing I have found really helps with my trading is to never allow myself to get stopped out until a trade idea is wrong, right? So it's like if the trade idea right now is we're getting new sellers below the overnight low, and that increases the odds of continuation lower, then I wouldn't want to get stopped out of a short unless we were back up inside the overnight range, right? Unless the concept of new sellers below overnight low failed. You'll get stopped out less often that way. And it might mean you have to be more patient with your entries. But it's a better way to look at things. Now would be a time to get stopped out. I also have a feeling the ticks broke the zero. Yep. So now the question is, can they keep the ticks above zero? Can they stay inside the overnight range? That's the only thing that can break the momentum down. If the ticks get slapped back down and price gets slapped back below the overnight range, we'll start pushing lower once again. So there's the ticks getting slapped. Let's look at the price. Oops. More new sellers. The momentum continues. Geo Capital, what's the best way to gauge new buyers and sellers? Well, it's a combination of two things. It's in a literal way, what is the market doing? Right? That's in every moment, you know who's got to there there has to be more buyers or sellers to move the market a certain way. So when the market pushed below the overnight low, for example, we know that is often a place where people who were short from above, that's where they'll take profits. They'll look to get out of those shorts right there around the overnight low. So it's not uncommon for the market to push below an overnight low and then come right back up, because there just wasn't really sellers who wanted to take the market lower. It's just the sellers that were already in weren't taking profits yet. And when you got to that overnight low and they took the profits, there was no new sellers. So if you're getting new business, for example, you see all this volume down here, below that low, you know that that's probably new sellers, right? Entering the trade. Okay, so that's the first thing to think about. And then you go and you look at the ticks, and then the ticks can kind of verify what's happening. So if the ticks are below the zero line, it means there are more sellers than buyers, like in general in the market. But if they're trending higher, it means there are starting to be more and more buyers stepping in, right? So if the ticks are trending higher, it's like the buyers are trying to defend. They're trying to come back. But if this keeps happening, if they get slapped down as soon as they get above the zero line, I'll just show you yesterday. How many times did they get slapped down when they tried to get above that zero line? That's a sign the sellers were in control. Sellers were in control, sellers were in control, sellers were in control. And what do we just get right now? Sellers are in control. So I then say out loud, new sellers below the overnight low. Okay, Charles, so I hear your point. New sellers below the overnight low. Why do we care? You know? Well, because those new sellers are not getting in business to take profits right now. They're looking to take the market lower before they take profits. And so on and so forth. Tourist trader? Capital Preservation Friday? Dude, every Friday is Capital Preservation Friday. Every day that ends with the word day is a Capital Preservation Day. Wanted. Welcome, Wanted. Thanks for the sub. WSS, why wouldn't new entries be fuel for a change in direction? Equaling today, these late shorts are fuel for a rally. Well, they could be. And before that would happen, we would know because we would see it in the ticks, right? If it were more people buying in here and they were accumulating long, we'd see those ticks creeping their way up to that zero line. And when it got above there, it'd be able to stay above there. And so then we'd say to ourselves, this thing's fixing to get squeezed. But right now, the sellers are in control. It's hard to squeeze the ones in control. They have the momentum. If you're looking for any sort of move to the upside, just keep your eye on that overnight low. As long as they're below there, as long as they're below 37.14, or sorry, 37.15, they're not. There's no rally. There's no nothing. They're going nowhere. LC, going back to your stop losses on rotational days, your stop is outside the value area. Generally on rotational days, my stop is outside the range, so it's above or below the high of the day. My entries are outside the value area. And I just don't do business inside the blue box on rotation. Or new business, I mean. I'll take profits there. This might seem like an overly simplistic way of looking at things, but if the market likes to move to wherever the liquidity is, there's a lot of liquidity down here. There's very little up here. Okay, buyers once again testing that zero line on the ticks. Fixing to get smacked. Screwball, but on the other side, it's easier to move the market in areas without liquidity. Yeah, that's true. But to what end is the point, you know? Screwball, they can rocket to the upside. Yeah, but that's the thing. It's like, but then who do they sell to, right? If there's nobody that wants to do business up here, and you see that as like, okay, great, I can easily push the market up there because there's no resistance. Who do you sell to up here? Who do you take profits into? You got to head towards the liquidity to have somebody to unload onto. So much better to use that as a push away, right? Much better to use that, ease of moving the market away to build up a short position to come back into liquidity where you can take profits and there's people waiting to buy from you. You know what I mean? All right. Once again, testing the overnight low. Okay. The C period is upon us. So I still feel the same. I think that the excess to the downside is not over. If I'm wrong, the way you'll know is they'll be able to keep those ticks above the zero line right now. They won't get slapped back down again. They'll stay above. And they'll be able to push through the resistance right around the halfback. Let's call it 37.20, this area right here. So if they're able to do those two things, if they're able to get the ticks to stay above the zero line and push their way through this resistance, then they can head back up to try to fill the gap once again. But what I believe is a higher probability is that the market still needs to head lower. And of course, I've explained the reasons. Gap and go is a sign of momentum to the downside. Value being lower is a sign of momentum to the downside. Value being up against the low of the day is a sign that we haven't had enough momentum to the downside. And sellers below the overnight low implies they want to take the market lower. With that, I say goodbye. Goodbye to you, and I hope you have a wonderful weekend. There's a link in the description for the e-course. If you've been watching these these sessions and you've been like, man, this is so cool. How does he know? How does he know, where it's getting resistance? How can he tell what the participants are doing? All of this is covered in the e-course. And so I'd recommend you check it out. Until Monday morning, and I'll see you then. Thanks a lot, guys. Have a good one. Oh, also, yeah, if you wouldn't mind pushing the like button. Why do I have to work so hard to get likes from you guys? Once again, less than half. Just a push of the thumbs up button.